All right. So L4M1 review. I told you earlier that the review is basically a demonstration of the extent to which you have prepared for your paper. So it's going to be very discussive, but we are limited, or there is some time constraint. By 12 letters by 12, we should be done. We may even finish before 12. So it's going to be very discussive, but we would try and work within the time limit. Okay. Let's start. I read a question, you attempt to answer. So question 1A, define the term stakeholder in relation to an organization. I think I gave an assignment of this sort. And some did it, some didn't. So when it comes to definition of stakeholder, I won't waste my time on it. But the B, describe the interest of two internal stakeholders of the procurement function. Internal stakeholders of the procurement function. Yes. Who are the stakeholders, internal stakeholders of the procurement function? There are some questions we won't waste time on it. We won't waste time on them at all. So the interest of two internal stakeholders of the procurement function. This, if you get a question like this, it's a bonus question. It's a very simple question. Okay. So who is talking?
Hello, Chris.
Yes. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope it's Jacqueline.
Yes, please, it's Jacqueline.
Yes.
Some of us are in progress, so but then.
Oh, don't worry. You see, this is not. I know you are not fully prepared, but just attempt it. Forget your vulnerability. Forget whether what you are saying is correct or wrong. You see, it's a sketch work that you are doing. So once you answer, you know, we will also be able to put it in the right context for you. You see. So forget about it. Forget about whether your answer will be wrong or no. You don't. I'm not expecting a 100% correct answer from you. No. So just feel free and flow for us. Okay.
So what I know is one upper management.
Okay, so top management.
Yes. Okay. Who have power, higher power, and then has a higher interest in the organization. And they are also the key players in terms of decision making and some other things pertaining to the organization. Yes. And then yes. And then the second one is staff.
So what is their interest?
So their interest is high according to the metrics.
Oh, okay. You are using the Mendel's metrics to explain.
Yes, Mendel's metrics. Yes, please.
Now you see, when you do that, you've even over answered the question.
Okay.
You get me? You've over-answered the question. So you just take top management. Let's take an employee. Let's use an employee like you as an example. What is your interest in an organization, the organization you are working in? What's your interest? Don't look at it in terms of it being high or low.
Okay.
Look at it in terms of why you are still in the business you are in or in the organization you are in. What do you want from the organization?
Productivity, and then more income. At least
Perfect.
I can get paid. Yes.
All right. That is your interest. You've answered the question. So what do you think would be the interest of top management?
To get higher dividends or
shareholders.
Shareholders, yes.
Shareholders. To achieve the profit objective.
Yes.
Good. You see, so that's their interest. Then you expand, you add some flesh, you expand on it. That's all.
Oh,
you see,
okay.
depending on the mark.
Oh.
Good. So that is the reason I wanted you to be answering the questions, so that we can put them all in proper context, because CIPS has a way they want their answers to be presented. So that we don't waste enough time, because you maybe end up drawing the project, the Mendel's metrics. Yeah, okay. It's waste of time. Okay. All right. So apart from the employee and top management, we have others like marketing department. We have finance, who protect the purse of the organization, and they are interested in ensuring that every member of the organization works within the budget. That's their interest. Okay, then describe how the two internal stakeholders identified in Part B might contribute to procurement activities. So the two internal stakeholders we mentioned, we identify top management and maybe let's say marketing or finance, or even employee. When you say employees, it's generic. So let's use the department, a particular department, be it finance or marketing. So top management, how do they contribute to procurement activities? So how do they contribute to procurement activities? Don't worry, if it is difficult for you, there are other stakeholders like marketing, like finance, like engineering. How do you think these departments or stakeholders contribute to procurement activities? So we can take marketing as an example. For marketing, marketing is interested in providing a product that appeals to customers. And they usually do market research or customer research. They investigate what customers really need. So after gathering that information, they pass it on to procurement. They tell procurement what they think customers really need. So procurement must ensure that they get, the right product, that marketing, based on their research, think customers really need. Okay, so that is how they contribute to procurement activities. And in fact, procurement will not buy unless marketing gives them what they want. So what do your customers want? They need A, B, and C. Buy it for us and let us sell it. It will increase sales, amongst other things. So that is how marketing contributes to procurement activities. Now, you'd realize that top management, when it comes to some decision making, we usually refer to top management. Buying larger or doing larger purchases. You remember we looked at total cost of ownership. You see, okay, let me proceed. We looked at total cost of ownership and we learned that it is not an exclusive preserve of the procurement function. It requires a cross-functional approach and top management involvement. Because the value of whatever we are buying is high, top management will have to come in and give approval before we will be able to buy. There are some items or big ticket capital items that procurement cannot buy unless top management gives approval. And he's even convinced, top management must be convinced that this is a very good investment before procurement can proceed to buy. So that is how they contribute. They give approval to business cases for the acquisition of, some business needs or some business requirements, be it goods, works, or services. If it is very expensive, top management will have to come in and give approval before it is done. So that is the contribution of top management to procurement activity. Once procurement orders for the goods, the invoice that the supplier will be given, amongst other documents required by the organization, will have to be given to finance before finance releases funds or makes payments. If finance does not make payment on time, procurement activities will be affected because the supplier one will subsequently not provide or not supply due to late payment. So once payment is being made frequently or in accordance to the terms of the contract, be it 30 days after delivery or on delivery, procurement activities will blossom, will be moving on. Procurement can, buy whatever the company needs at any time. And suppliers will also be willing to supply because they are being paid on time. And the payment is done by finance. So that is how, finance contributes to procurement activities. Okay. Now, we are done with question C. 2A. Explain with examples the differences between direct and indirect procurement. So this was the first assignment I think I did. Okay, the difference between direct and indirect procurement. Yes. Hello? Are we there? Hello? Okay, don't worry. Maybe if I hit on them briefly, it will be better so that I don't worry you with questions. Okay, so explain with examples the differences between direct and indirect procurement. So what is direct procurement and what is indirect procurement? Now, when we talk about direct procurement, we can use the value chain to draw the line of distinction between direct and indirect procurement. Now, direct procurement describes a procurement situation where the items we are buying are meant for resale or they are meant to be incorporated into the final product. They are either meant for resale or they are meant to be incorporated into the final product. So the raw materials, components, the components of your phone. When the manufacturer of your phone bought those components, they were meant to be incorporated into the final product, which is the phone you are using. To the organization, it is, or to the manufacturer, it is direct procurement because it is meant, whatever we are buying is meant to be incorporated into the final products. Indirect procurement, on the other hand, is the procurement or describes a procurement situation where what we are buying are not meant to be incorporated into the final product, but they are meant to facilitate operation or operational activities. So this include acquisition of some services, even consultancy, because before we can even start a particular project, we need to consult, amongst others. We can even talk of lubricants, MROs, material, maintenance, repair and operational items. They are not meant to be part of the final product. We can even talk of softwares, furniture. Furniture is an example because in your organization, if you are into manufacturing, you would have a machine sitting on your desk, a computer system sitting on your desk or on your desk. The desk will not be part of the final product. No, it's meant to help you do what you have to do in your organization. So if you are buying furniture, if you are buying stationery, if you are buying printer, those printers are meant to, or they are meant for administrative activities. So all administrative expenses, electricity, water, and all, they are just meant to make life, worth living in the organization and to enable employees, operate or efficiently. But all those expenses are not meant to be part of the final product. So when we buy those things, we call it indirect procurement. Okay, so all you need to is an introduction to include the definition of procurement. If you're answering this question, you need an introduction to include the definition of procurement. If that's your first question, you explain procurement, then briefly, then you will provide the answers. And looking at the marks, you can use the value chain. And look, you don't need to even draw the value chain. The one marking, the examiner knows the content of the value chain. So you will just have to make reference to the primary activities and the support activities. The primary activities are inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, then, after sales service. Then the support activities include firm infrastructure, human resource, procurement. Then we can even talk about IT development. Okay, so B, explain in procurement terms 3 distinctive features of services. 3 distinctive features of services. So we can talk about heterogeneity of service. First, explain what services or define a service and give an example of service. So Philip Kotler's definition of service, you have to provide it. So kindly write it. I won't give you the definition. It's in the audios. So you would have to provide the definition of a service as any activity transferred from one person to the other, which is essentially intangible and does not result in the ownership of anything. That is the definition by Philip Kotler. Then you provide an example of service. It could be banking services, security services, cleaning services, catering services, and all that. Then you can give the 3 distinctive features. One is heterogeneity. that services are heterogeneous. One is, intangibility. They are intangible. You can't feel, you can't hold, you can't touch. You can't even experience before you pay. So that is another distinctive feature. Then ownership. Yes, ownership is also another feature. Then yes, we've looked at intangibility, we've looked at heterogeneity, we've looked at ownership. We've looked at ownership. And these ones, don't just mention them and explain them. What will be the implication for procurement function? So intangibility, we cannot touch, we cannot feel it. It's not like a physical product we can feel. What should procurement do to assure itself that what it is buying is the right quality of service? One, customer recommendation or customer testimonies from the suppliers, customers would be okay. We can also have a service level agreement for the supplier so that once those service levels are met, we know we are getting the right quality of service we expect. So that should be the implication for procurement when you're answering this question. Now, question 3A, outline using examples 5 elements of total cost of ownership of capital equipment. 5 elements of total cost of ownership of capital equipment. So first, you need to provide an introduction to include the definition of total cost of ownership. Then you can add that it usually applies to larger purchases. Total cost of ownership is not meant for small items. It usually applies to larger purchases like capital equipment, including even building, special purpose vehicles, plants and machinery, etc. Okay. Then from there, you explain the elements of total cost of ownership. What are the elements? We can look at pre-acquisition costs. We can look at acquisition costs. We can look at maintenance costs, training, insurance, disposal, or end-of-life costs. You see, these are all elements of total cost of ownership. Then, you are done. Okay, you are done. Then we can look at the second question, 3B. It is widely believed that it is important to attempt to reduce costs and add value throughout the supply chain. Explain 3 innovative strategies that might achieve such goals. So when we talk about innovative strategies in supply chain, it revolves around the concepts you've heard before, especially those who have done procurement. Now, there are concepts like added value negotiation or win-win negotiation. Win-win negotiation. Now, win-win negotiation is an innovative strategy because it allows for brainstorming. When members come to, or parties come together to negotiate with a win-win mindset, they are able to expand the pie. Expanding the pie means that there is a limited resource that they have to share. But because they both want a larger chunk of the pie, they can only expand it by brainstorming. Okay, they can brainstorm, they can share information, they can be transparent with their demand. They don't hide anything. All they need is how, they can both get what they want from the table. or from the negotiation. So it's a win-win affair. It's a win-win affair, and it's very productive. Then there is lean supply chain strategy. Lean supply chain is also an innovative supply chain approach, and even agile supply chain. Lean works with the philosophy that holding stock is evil. We don't need to hold too much stock. We don't need to hold too much stock because holding stock is waste. Waiting time is waste, so there should be no waiting. Waiting is waste. So if you look at the 7 wastes of lean, these help organization to, streamline its activities in such a way that it does not incur a lot of cost. Now, the government, the reason a lot of people are saying we are suffering in this nation is all about waste. There are a lot of waste in the system. Recently, it has come up that there are a lot of wastes in the system. That is causing the country or the economy to lose a lot of money. We can approach it from a lean mindset. So the government can be lean. They can apply lean, supply chain strategy so that everything, works in order. We eliminate a whole lot of waste and unnecessary activities within government. I learned that even at the ministry, government, the presidency, under the Ministry of Communication, there are about 18 different portfolios. 18. They have communication experts, 2 communication experts. They have a communication consultant. Then they also have a media advisor. As if one person cannot do a whole lot. Yet they are taking a lot of money. So we can have lean government. Even Parliament is trying as much as possible to go lean because of the increasing prices of fuel. 2 days ago or yesterday, I think yesterday, one of the members of Parliament said that the speaker, he pleaded with the speaker to allow them come to work twice a week, so that if they can spend 8 hours daily, they do that instead of coming there all the time. And once they sit, within 2 hours, they are done and they have to go back. If they are able to do so, if they are able to come to work twice a week, they will be able to save at least 500 cedis on fuel every week. He is proposing a lean approach. You see, it's lean because he sees, coming to to Parliament just for 2 hours, driving all the way from just to sit for 2 hours and drive back is waste. So they are now beginning to identify all the wasteful activities in the system. That is lean. Then we can look at agile supply. Now, apart from that, lean supply chain requires that we do not hold stock, but we receive our goods just in time. So just in time concepts, very important. So just at the time, we need them for production. They even don't produce ahead of time. Overproduction is also waste. So to produce based on the orders they receive. No orders, no production. Once we receive the order, we produce. So overproduction is a no-no for lean supply chain, philosophy or philosophers. Then we can move to agile supply. Agile supply also requires a responsive approach to changing demands of the market. Whereas lean is lean and it only meets customers' orders, it does not, agile supply chain also does same, but it entertains some amount of stockholding. Lean approach strictly avoids stockholding, but agile supply permits some stockholding so that they can respond to the changing demand of the market. That is the disadvantage of lean, because if you're operating lean, you won't be able to respond to the changing demands or increasing demands of the market. Someone can place an order for 50 items. You also order, it comes, you supply. Immediately, if he says he needs extra 20, a lean supply chain will be unable to supply the extra 20 immediately because they don't hold excess stock. But agile supply will be able to do that because agile supply allows excess stock to be held. So there is this new concept called agile. Lean, a combination of lean supply chain and agile supply chain, is also an innovative strategy. Then we can look at value engineering and value analysis. Value engineering and value analysis. These are also two important supply chain innovative strategies. Now, when we talk about value engineering, it's about incorporating, lean approach into specification development. You identifying all the unnecessary elements, all the unnecessary elements in your specification. That only increases cost and does not add value to the customer. And we can do this by doing what we call market research, asking customers what they really want, so that we don't put into a product what customers don't need. So it's not about what the company thinks customers need, but it's what the customers really need. Okay, so that is value engineering, and value engineering starts with new product development. That is when we are developing a new product. But value analysis is for old or existing products, where we take the item or the product and we look at how we can reduce the cost of all the parts of the item and still charge the same price for a very long time. You see, that is value analysis. And we can talk of total quality management, which is a very radical philosophy that ensures that all the supply chain members think about quality. Think about quality. It's a radical philosophy in supply chain literature. So you can read more on that. These are some of the innovative strategies. So at least you need just 3. Then we can move on to question 4. Explain 5 potential benefits of a supply chain management approach to procurement and supply. Yes, potential benefits. You see, so explain 5 potential benefits of a supply chain management approach to procurement and supply. Now, you need to provide an introduction. And a definition, and your introduction should include a definition of supply chain management and the objectives of supply chain management. What is the objective of supply chain management? Even the objective is in the definition of supply chain management. Then you can prescribe some potential benefits, that could be derived from the innovative supply chain strategies identified in the question we just looked at. So, I think I've skipped some questions, but we'll address them, don't worry. So, explain 5 potential benefits. Oh no, I didn't skip. Okay, I didn't skip. The 3 innovative strategies. So the innovative strategies we identified: the added value negotiation, the lean supply chain strategies, agile supply chain value. These are all supply chain concepts. What are the advantages of these supply chain concepts? We can use them for question 4, to answer question 4. So when you take lean supply chain, what are the benefits? What are the advantages? You can get about 3. If you take agile supply, we can get a lot. Value engineering, total quality management. These are all supply chain concepts. These are all supply chain concepts. And we can take their advantages or their benefits one after the other. And we can even get more than 5 points. Then question 4B, outline why supply chain management may be unattractive to some organizations. Now you see, supply chain management requires integration. It cannot work effectively without integration. So there are a lot of players within the supply chain: the producer, the supplier, the organization, then from organization to product to customers or distributors, then from distributors to consumers. Then we even have wholesalers and retailers along the chain before it even gets to the consumer, final consumer. Now, it requires an integration of systems. And this is IT. It's IT, information technology. For supply chain management to function effectively, information flow is very, very important. And information can only flow electronically. So if the systems are not working or are not integrated, the supplier and the buyer, the supplier system and the buyer system are not linked, it becomes very difficult to deliver a very successful supply chain performance outcome. So let's look at some of the reasons why supply chain management may be unattractive to some organizations. It's one, requires considerable investment, like I mentioned, IT, which might even be beyond the reach of some small, medium enterprises, SMEs. They will not be able to, they will be part of the supply chain, but when it comes to integration, they don't even have ERP. It will only be on the phone call or over the phone. They don't even have systems to integrate. And for supply chain to function effectively, it's a requirement. And it's also another, reason supply chain management may be unattractive is that it involves focusing on closer relationships with a smaller number of suppliers, which might be very risky. And you see, when we talk about collaboration, supply chain collaboration, there are disadvantages and disadvantages. Information sharing, some commercially sensitive information may be shared with a supplier and all that. These are all some of the downsides of supply chain management. Now, supply chain management, we know, requires collaboration, and this may even make some suppliers become very complacent because they know they are members of the supply chain and you are in a very good relationship with them. There is some integration. So they can become complacent with their performance over time. And you may even end up developing assets, developing intellectual property together, you know, forecasting together, doing things together as a supply chain, because organizations don't compete. Let's take note. It is their supply chain that competes. So there is a need for that collaboration. And this may even result in loss of control over commercial and intellectual assets, you know, and the intellectual properties you have developed together. But so if there is no written agreement as to the ownership of the intellectual property, it can become a point of, you know, conflict for supply chain members. Then we can look at even some sectors, such as the public and third sector. They are not even interested in supply chain management. Public sector and the third sector, or not-for-profit making organizations. No, they are not. They are not even interested in supply chain management. That's why these supply chain concept, management concept, lean, agile, total quality management are for private sector companies. In the public sector, they don't do that. So it is not attractive for the public sector and third sector. Okay. Then we can look at question 4B. Outline why supply chain management may be unattractive. Okay, we've looked at that. Explain 5 differences between operational expenditure and capital expenditure. Yes. This is also a question that I give as an assignment. I wish I wouldn't even comment. Now, talk some. At least I've spoken, I've answered 4 questions. You should also whilst I sip some water. So explain the difference between operational expenditure and capital expenditure. Yes. Hello. Okay. So you also need an introduction for this question. And your introduction should distinguish operational expenditure from capital expenditure using examples. And this should be in your first paragraph. Then in your second paragraph, you will zero in on the key areas of difference. And the first one, you can say that operational expenditure items are financed from the organization's revenue budget, while capital expenditure are financed by a capital account. Now, operational items are usually purchased for short-term consumption. For short-term consumption. Yeah, so like stationery are for short term, like every month or every 2 months you buy, you know, electricity, every month you buy. You know, they are all, you know, operational expenditure. They all fall under operational expenditure or operational expenses. They are meant for short-term production, consumption, or even resale, while capital items will usually be used over a long period of time. So building is not purchased. You don't buy every month. You don't acquire buildings every month, no. Or a new office every month. No, it's just once. You know, plant and machinery. is long-term. So identify some items in your organization that you buy every month or every quarter. These are operational expenses. Then we can also say that operational expenditure or operational expenses are less complex. You know, they are less complex in their prescription or in their specification. Operational items, when you are specifying them, they are less complex. You know, in terms of their specification, like stationery, like lubricants, like MROs, maintenance, repair, and operation equipment, you know, requirements or items. Just mention them. Their specifications are very simple, but for capital expenditure specification, that is when you need total cost of ownership approach. Specification must be very detailed. Specification must be very detailed. Okay. So there are a lot more points of differences that can be provided. Then question 6. Describe 5 distinctive features of capital procurement, providing examples as appropriate. So like we did for question 5, yes, their specification is very high or very complex. And one, capital requirement or procurement requires a total cost approach. And capital procurement also is done for a very long time. Whatever we are buying is meant to go beyond 5 to 10 years, unlike operational expenditure or items. So there are a lot more, you know, distinctive features of capital procurement. Distinctive features of capital procurement. And we can look at question 8 or question 7. Explain the interest of 5 connected or external stakeholders that a procurement function might need to consider. Yes, so we can look at external stakeholders and connected stakeholders. The first one we looked at had to do with internal stakeholders. Now, the interest of our suppliers. Our suppliers are connected, and their interest is to ensure that we pay them on time so they can continually supply. Our financiers are also connected, the banks we take loans from. They also want us to continually do business so that we can service our loans. Our customers are also connected. They will rely on us for the right quality of outputs or finished products so that they can also sell, you know, to get their money. Yes, and they would also expect us to give them exactly what they want or satisfy them. If we are unable to do that, they have some power to switch to our competitors. Then external stakeholders, we can talk of professional bodies like CIPS. If you remember and you fail to comply with the professional codes of conduct, your membership can be revoked or can be withdrawn. And that is very important. They are interested in ensuring that all their members, professional bodies are interested in ensuring that all their members act professionally in wherever they find themselves to enhance the image of the profession. Then external stakeholders like government or regulatory authorities, they also have their interests.
to ensure that organizations comply with rules and regulations. Then question 8, explain the importance of each of the 5 rights of procurement, outlining the added value each might achieve for the procurement organization. I want to answer this question. Explain one additional source. So the 5 rights, we know them: the right quality, the right quantity, the right price, the right, place, the right place. Then additional sources. Yes, the right source is an additional source. The right supplier is an additional source. The right procurement process, the right relationship is also an additional source. Question 9E, explain 2 ways in which procurement differs from purchasing. We learned that procurement is proactive, and because it works with stakeholders, it allows procurement function to work with stakeholders to identify needs ahead of time. But purchasing is reactive. It's reactive. It is as and when we need the item, then we buy. And procurement is also wider and less limited than purchasing. It is about obtaining goods or services in any way, including purchasing, including hiring or renting, even leasing and borrowing. So purchasing is part of the procurement process. It's part of procurement. Purchasing is part of procurement. So there are differences. Then we also learned that procurement is relational, and purchasing is more of transactional. Yes, so when we talk about developing relationships with suppliers, procurement, the right relationship, managing supply relationship, that's what we do with procurement. Procurement does not only look at the short-term benefits, it looks at the long-term benefits from the contract. But purchasing looks at short-term, that's why it's transactional. I deal with you today and that is it. Whether we'll buy from you tomorrow or not, we don't know. So purchasing can be very adversarial, whereas procurement can be very collaborative. Then question B, 9B, outline 5 ways in which improving the quality of products can add value for an organization. If you improve the quality of a product, what are some of the benefits? Yes, how does it add value to the organization? One way it adds value is that your risk of failure is reduced. You're able to reduce your risk of failure, because if the product fails, you'd have to rework or work on it again. It's cost. It's even, you may even end up losing your reputation. So the risk of losing your reputation will also be avoided, because if poor quality products get to customers, they would, through negative word of mouth, they call bad mouthing, they can deter people or stop people from patronizing your product because due to poor quality. But if quality is good, you would be able to enhance your sales and even improve your customer database. You can even expand your market. You can expand your market. These are the value added benefits of having the right quality. Yes, and then the cost of compensation, because if your product fails, or if you produce a poor quality product, and it gets to your customers, if you are unable to identify it in your organization before it gets to your customers, you would have to do product recalls, and customers will have to be compensated. That's another cost. And even how you even manage public relations or yes, public relations or PR. You have to do very good PR. It's very, very necessary. And it may even go a long way to affect your reputation or your credibility as an organization and the confidence customers have in your product or service. So if it is the right quality, the opposite is what will happen to you. Then we can look at question 10. Explain the power and interest of 5 different stakeholders of a procurement function using an appropriate model. So this is where you use an appropriate model. That's where you use a Mendelow's matrix, the Mendelow's matrix. Now the power and the interest of 5 different stakeholders. Now top management, we know top management has some power. Yes, they are interested in ensuring that procurement procures efficiently and effectively to achieve organization's goal or objective. Procurement has to procure in a manner that will allow the organization to achieve value for money, and top management is interested in ensuring this happens. If procurement fails or procurement managers are unable to deliver this performance outcome, what top management can do is to lay them off and recruit another procurement manager who will be able to achieve that objective for the company. Then we can talk of finance. If finance is there to ensure procurement works within the budget, but and they are also there to make payments for anything that procurement buys. If finance does not get the requisite documents, the right documents required before payment is made to suppliers, they will not make payments. And this can affect procurement performance, because if finance is not making payments, suppliers are not supplying on time. Who will it affect most? It will affect procurement, because user departments will be relying on procurement for their inputs or their goods or their requirements. So that is the power and interest of the finance department. The finance is interested in procurement of various, yes, this is purely the procurement function to work within the budget and provide the right documents for payment to be made. If procurement fails, payment will not be made. Then we can even talk of suppliers and customers. I've explained their interest. If suppliers are not paid on time, they will not supply anymore. That's the power they have. And that can affect the organization's productivity, because suppliers are not supplying materials, components, and parts. So, and if they don't supply their supplies, the procurement cannot operate, or the organization cannot operate. Our customers also, they rely on the organization to satisfy their requirements. If they are not satisfied, they may switch to your competitors who are better placed to meet their requirements or their needs. And this can affect the organization's profitability and market share. So we are done with question 1. 1 hour, 15 minutes. We'll finish with question 2 right now. Then we can move on to question 3 and 4. So question 1, under chapter 2. Question 1, under chapter 2. Under chapter 2, yes, outline 3 pre-contract award stages of the sourcing process.
Christian, please, your questions are not showing.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so outline 3 pre-procurement or pre-contract award stages of the sourcing process. Yes, outline 3 pre-contract award stages of the sourcing process. These are very simple questions. At least question 2, chapter 2 questions are quite favorable. So the 3 pre-contract award stages. He has mentioned some for me. Yes, what are some of the pre-contract award stages in the sourcing process? Hello. Okay. Since you are not talking, let's proceed. So chapter 2, question 1, the pre-contract award stages. And if you look at the CIPS procurement cycle, it starts with understanding the need and developing high-level specification. That is 1. Then we can look at market commodity. That is also 2. Then we can look at even pre-procurement market analysis. Then we can look at documentation. Yes, documentation. That's where we develop the necessary documents, the RFQs, the invitation to tender documents and all that. Then we can now do our supplier selection or supplier pre-qualification, looking at their financial capability, their systems capabilities, their technical competence, production capacity and all that. Then we can invite bids. After inviting the bids, we evaluate the bid and award contract. So the pre-contract award stages does not include contract award. These are the ones I just mentioned. They are all the activities before contract award. We just identify 3 of them and explain them. Then explain 5 advantages for an organization of following a structured sourcing process. A structured sourcing process. So this may include an explanation of the procurement cycle. When we talk about structured sourcing process, you need to look at the procurement cycle as a structured sourcing process, providing all the stages. But in the exams, you may not be able to draw diagrams. So you can just list them. You can just list the stages. And there will be no need to even explain the stages of the procurement cycle. You don't need to explain the stages, as that will take valuable time and will not be even rewarded. So remember that it's only introductory and not really the focus. Yes, it's not really the focus. It's only introductory. Now you can also describe 5 ways in which, following a structured sourcing process can add value to an organization. And these might even include, identifying gaps. So following a structured procurement process ensures that all tasks or activities have been performed without any gap. Yes, so you want to know, have you developed understanding of the specification? Have we specified correctly? Have we done our market research properly? Do we have information about market prices? These are all questions that you may want to ask. Do we have the necessary documentation? Have we really evaluated the capabilities of suppliers before even inviting bids? So it helps you ensure that all the tasks that we need to do have been done without any gap. And it also ensures adequate coordination between parties collaborating in a process with no wasteful duplication of efforts. So you wouldn't have to, go through the whole cycle again if the first part has already been done. If you already have the specification, if suppliers have already been pre-qualified, there is no need pre-qualifying them again. In the public sector, PPA has approved list of suppliers, and these suppliers have already been pre-qualified. It means the first stage, activities within the first, the pre-contract award activities have been done by you. In terms of supplier selection, it has been done. So all the suppliers on the list are credible suppliers. They've been evaluated in terms of their finance, amongst other, criteria. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel or duplicate the effort by evaluating them again. You see, because there is a process, PPA has already done that evaluation. So all you need is to invite them to bid for the contract. That's all. Invite those suppliers to bid. And this avoids duplication of waste, duplication of effort, so to speak. And it also helps maintain some consistency, in processes and even outcomes, as opposed to uncertainty, because if there is no cycle, there is no process to follow, Rosalind will come and think the way to go for procurement for her is this way. Another person, Jacqueline, may come and say, no, procurement, I will do my procurement this way. Irene will also come and say, I will do my procurement this way. And this brings a lot of uncertainties and inconsistencies in the procurement process. It even becomes very difficult to audit it. But when there is a structured approach, irrespective of the one occupying the procurement manager's seat, the same structure, the same process will be followed, and it's auditable. So discretionary procurement or discretionary purchasing can be reduced if there is a structured approach to sourcing or to procurement. It also supports good governance and managerial control. Yes, having a structured process supports good governance because it's part of corporate governance and managerial control. You can't do things anyhow. You can't just buy because you need to buy. Just a minute, please. All right, so we can proceed. Explain why it's important to define needs early in the procurement stage. why it's important to define needs early in the procurement stage. Yeah, so it's about specification development. Defining needs early in the procurement stage is even the first point. The first point of the procurement process. Understanding the need and developing high-level specification. Yeah, so to define the requirement at an early stage, one even encourages relevant stakeholders to consider what they really need. So that is where you can gain understanding of the needs of customers or of stakeholders, be it customers, suppliers, even internal stakeholders, amongst other stakeholders. And whether what they think they need is the only most cost-effective or most value-adding solution. So a receptionist, for instance, may think she needs, a MacBook. MacBook for what? Is that what you really need per your job description? Or a particular special purpose computer, which is around 12,000, 15,000 Ghana cedis. A receptionist. You don't need that. You need a very simple laptop. You see, so identifying needs at an early stage is very important. And defining needs at an early stage also communicates the requirements clearly to suppliers so that they can plan to conform and perhaps also even use their expertise to come up with innovative or lower cost solutions to the requirements or even the problem, you see. So you end up getting what you need from your supplier if you're able to identify the need at an early stage. And the need must be clear and unambiguous. Yes, the need must be clear and unambiguous so that suppliers can plan to meet them. That's why they have to be defined properly. Defining needs is specification. It's about specification. If you don't specify appropriately, you are not going to get what you want. You either over-specify or you under-specify. Okay, so it's very important. It also, provides a means of evaluating the quality or the conformance of the goods that the supplier is supplying. So once you have a specification or once your needs are clearly defined and suppliers have information about your need, when they supply, you can only compare what they've supplied with your specification. If it does not conform to your specification, you have every reasonable ground to reject whatever they've supplied. That is why you need to define your needs early in the procurement stage. Okay, then we can move to question B, 2B. Explain 4 ways in which electronic systems can be used at different stages of the sourcing process. Hello? Yeah, so explain 4 ways in which electronic systems can be used at different stages of the sourcing process. So your answer should explain 3 ways in which electronic systems can be used in the sourcing process. And these might include e-requisition. E-requisition is one of the electronic systems. You can look at e-catalogs, e-sourcing, e-auction, e-negotiation, e-payment, all the electronic sourcing systems that we looked at, you know, the appropriate response to this question. So you can provide them as answers to this very question. Then question 3, describe 4 ways in which added value may be created by a buying organization through an effective sourcing process. So an effective sourcing process. Yes, so here what you are going to do is that you identify all the elements of the procurement process or the sourcing process. And we've learned that the sourcing process starts from the first stage to contract award. It ends with contract award. So understanding the need and developing high-level specification to contract award. That is the sourcing process. Now, how do the activities within the sourcing process add value? So when you take understanding the need and developing high-level specification, how does specification development add value to the organization? We've mentioned some right now, why it's important to define needs. You know, we mentioned even about 3 points there. These are all, you know, added value solutions. Then we can even look at market analysis, which includes, you know, market commodity, pre-procurement market test, and you know, and the rest. So we can even look at even developing documentation, why we need to also develop documentation, like develop RFQ, you know, invitation to tender, why we need to even select our suppliers or evaluate the performance, you know, the capabilities of our suppliers, not their performance, the capabilities of suppliers. We can get a lot right, a lot. All these stages add value. But you see, it's just 4 ways. So what you do is that you pick just 4 stages, 4 pre-contract award stages, and look at how they add value to the sourcing process. As simple as that. Then question 4, explain the activities that could be undertaken by an organization to identify and appraise potential suppliers as part of a sourcing process. So there's a double-barreled question. Explain the activities that could be undertaken by an organization to identify and appraise potential suppliers as part of a sourcing process. So one side talks about identification of suppliers. How do we identify suppliers? Through catalogs, we can even through trade fairs and exhibitions, we can even search for suppliers on the internet, you know, amongst others. Then how do we appraise potential suppliers? The appraiser looks at the supplier selection, looking at the supplier's quality assurance or supplier's financial capability, supplier's, you know, technical capability, supplier's systems capability, sustainability capability, and the rest. So it's 2, identify and appraise. Then question 4B, explain 3 activities that take place post-contract award. So post-contract award, contract management takes place post-contract award. Supplier relationship management takes place post-contract award. You know, receipts, goods receipts takes place. Supplier performance evaluation also takes place after contract award. It's only after the contract has been awarded to a supplier that performance appraisal can be done. You appraise the supplier's performance. Then you determine whether the supplier is fit to or is fit for a long-term relationship. You know, then we can look at whole life asset management also. So these are some of the post-contract award activities. Yes. Question 5A, identify the main stages of the sourcing process. Yes, also known as purchasing or procurement cycle. So we've looked at that, the main stages of the sourcing process, right from understanding the need to contract award. That's the sourcing process. But I doubt if they'll be asking you these questions, as they are not going to allow you to use diagrams. But you will, if they do ask, you would have to explain without even drawing. You only explain the procurement cycle in paragraphs. Then describe 4 benefits and costs of using electronic systems in the sourcing process. So yes, electronic systems are very expensive. If you are using MRP, if you are using enterprise resource planning, even auction softwares and all that, there are e-tendering softwares or solutions, e-procurement solutions. They are all very expensive. And one, they require training. And apart from the cost of acquiring these systems, knowing how to use them doesn't come naturally. You would have to learn, be trained on how to use these electronic systems before you can effectively deploy them or use them. That is also one cost. And after the training, there will be some learning curve cost, because you'll be making mistakes, or the trainees will be making mistakes in the application, and that could make the company lose some money. But it's part of the process. That is also cost to the organization. Then there can also be cyber activities of, cyber fraudsters. Yes, your systems can be hacked and or even hijacked, or some ransomware and all that. So you would even need to give your system an additional boost by, through what we call information security. And that is also cost, because once your system is hijacked by unidentified persons, you cannot work, you cannot do anything. It becomes slow. It does not even become slow. You need to fly down an expert. I think a few years ago, MTN did that. Their systems were hijacked, and no one could even do anything on their computers. So they had to fly in an expert from abroad. And this person would have to sleep in a very good hotel, if not Movenpick Ambassador Hotel. Then it could be a 5-star hotel. Yes, he has to come and fix the problem and recommend an acquisition of a software that would give their system an additional boost or protective cover, and that is cost. So if you look at the cost that comes with e-procurement or electronic systems, is huge. But there are also a lot of benefits, because it is very fast and it eliminates, it reduces consumption. Corruption, I meant to say. So it reduces corruption, because if you look at e-tendering, for example, e-tendering, and does not, require the involvement of the evaluation panel. It's a system. The system does the evaluation and selects the best supplier. So if you give the supplier money, if you give, the supplier gives one of the team members money, evaluating team members money, that team member cannot influence anything. It's a system. So, and the system is designed to be fair. So there will be fairness, there will be confidence in the procurement system among suppliers. Suppliers will have confidence in the procurement system. That is one benefit. And there is also value for money because e-tendering does not require suppliers to drive all the way to the organization to drop their bid in the tender box. No, they can even 5 minutes to time or to the deadline, submit their bid wherever they are in their offices. And this, enhances the number of suppliers bidding for particular contracts. So the buying organization can achieve value for money there because competition will be higher than the traditional tendering process. Then we can move on to the next question. Question 6A, outline the potential impact of complex compliance requirements on the achievement of positive outcomes in the sourcing process. So complex compliance requirements. Yes, it does usually happens in the public sector. So what you do is that you may want to start with an introduction. And you may want to feature the CIPS procurement cycle in your introduction, as it is a perfect example of a structured sourcing process. So here, this is just like a sourcing process, discussing the disadvantages of a strict sourcing process. Now, one, the organization tends to become resistant to change and unable to even adapt to challenges of changing competitive initiatives and even customer demands due to the need to follow a structured process. Now, this only happens in the public sector. The private sector, because their objective is profitability, they can circumvent the system. They can cut the red tape because a strict process creates a bureaucratic system. And even when we need to skip a system to acquire or skip a process to acquire our inputs on time, we don't do it, especially in the public sector, because in the public sector, there is strict compliance. The public procurement law must go through this, all in the way to achieve value for money. So they've tried as much as possible to reduce some emergency items. Even that will even still have to go through some process. You see, strict process, it does not make the organization responsive enough. It doesn't. If there is a strict policy for procurement will not be able to buy certain things to meet customer demands because it has to follow the process, which may take a lot of time, And a complex compliance requirement also concentrates on doing things the right way, doing things the right way. And by concentrating on doing things the right way, organizations are likely to become very bureaucratic. And, there is even no attempt to add value through initiative or innovation because there's a laid down process. You have to follow the process. You see, but the process must be updated. If the process is an old process that we all have to follow, then we cannot be innovative. We cannot take initiative because it's a process that must be followed. And we know the disadvantages of excessive bureaucracy. The private man will cut all those bureaucracies. But public sector, no. The bureaucracy must go through. So most of the problems we have in the public sector
can be attributed to bureaucracy, bureaucratic processes, and the need to, follow strict processes. Okay. So these are among some of the disadvantages or the issues relating to complex compliance requirements. So please don't be disturbed by the complex compliance. It's still about following a structured process, discussing the disadvantages of it. Then describe 5 ways in which contract management might add value after the contract award stage of the sourcing process. And outline 3 ways in which supplier selection may add value. Yeah, so question 7, outline 3 ways in which supplier selection may add value in the sourcing process. It's a lot. So the supplier's financial capability. Why do you need to assess the supplier's financial capability? How does it add value? What does it mean for you if a supplier is rated AAA? If a supplier is financially sound? If a supplier is not financially sound, what does it mean? If a supplier is technically competent, what are the advantages? Or why do you need a supplier who is technically competent, who has the requisite production capacity? What does it mean if a supplier is sustainable? What are some of the value-adding activities or solutions of supplier selection? Why do you need to select a supplier? We've discussed this at length. So let's come back to B. Describe 5 ways in which contract management. Yes, contract management might add value, a lot of value, because that is where you look at how you can follow up and expedite your requirements. So you have to be calling the suppliers and making sure that they supply the items on time. And we have also talked about timely delivery, the right time, delivering at the right time. The supplier may not deliver at the right time without contract management. The contract manager must ensure that the supplier delivers at the right time by doing following ups. The supplier may have even forgotten the timeline, the contract delivery time. So through your call, the supplier may be reminded. And contract management also has a risk assessment aspect. The contract manager needs to ensure that all the risk inherent in the contract, post-contract award, are managed effectively. So yes, the supplier may have been selected because the supplier is financially sound, but the supplier's financial position must be monitored because the supplier can go into liquidation at any time. Look at the dollar CD, discrepancy, a very huge gap. It can collapse a business easily in Ghana. You see, and it can, I learned about 50% of businessmen's capital have been eroded by the exchange rate. So they can't buy what they used to buy anymore. Their financial performance has been affected. So it needs to be monitored. And once this is done, it reduces the risk of non-performance. You wouldn't have a situation where the supplier will come and say, we've gone bankrupt, so we cannot execute the contract. No, you would always have a backup. So another
value-adding activity of contract management is dispute resolution. Yes, dispute resolution. You need to be able to resolve dispute. The contract manager must be able to resolve disputes or must resort to the right dispute resolution mechanism so that the supplier can supply the supplies. And if it is arbitration or conciliation or mediation, yes, the supplier must, the contract manager must ensure that that is resorted to, for the contract to move on. Now, when it comes to documentation and change control, yes, contract management also does that because there will be a situation, or there could even be a situation where the specification has changed changes slightly after the contract is awarded to the supplier. Any new changes made must be done with the consent of the supplier. The supplier must be in the law or must know. And a new version of the specification or the contract drafted so that the supplier knows which version of the contract he's working with. Yes, and how does this add value? Yes, it ensures that the supplier delivers exactly what the company wants, because if you change your specification without, or any term in the contract, without the supplier's consent, the supplier will still be using the old contract, thinking that is the contract you both agreed on. And this can even raise legal issues if the relationship you both have isn't that good. So contract management will ensure that the supplier has a copy of the new version so that he delivers exactly what the company needs at the right time and of the right quality. Yes, okay. So contract management also requires supplier relationship management. You have to manage suppliers or relationship with suppliers. All suppliers do not require the same, type of relationship. Some require transactional relationship, others require partnership, some arm's length, some adversarial, some single sourcing. The contract management or the contract manager must know which item or which, supplier requires a particular relationship using the project metrics. Yes, then payment. Suppliers must also be paid. If suppliers are paid on time, they will always supply. Yes, it's part of contract management. And this ensures supplier continuity. Contract management ensures suppliers are paid on time. And this ensures supply continuity. It means suppliers will always want to supply because they will be paid on time. Then we can move to question 3. We are done with question 1, question 2. Now to question 3. 1A. Explain 4 advantages for an organization of adopting a centralized procurement structure. 4 advantages of an organization for adopting a centralized procurement structure. So we are looking at the structures. Now, having a centralized procurement structure is very important for sectors like the public sector and even some private sector organizations and not-for-profit making organizations. A centralized procurement structure ensures that procurement is done at the head office. And when goods arrived, they are distributed to the various branches. The advantage is that one, the company can develop expertise in the various categories of purchases. So we can say that if our team or the team we are using, I mean our team, the team on the platform at the moment, Rosalind, Jacqueline, and co. If you are all at the head office, Jacqueline will be in charge of procuring only IT items in bulk for all the branches. And will develop relationship or will develop the expertise and the competence and capability in managing these items and suppliers of these items effectively. Rosalind may also be dealing with other category of purchases. She may be the category manager for that category of items. His expertise may also be enhanced by doing so. Now, apart from the development of expertise, which inures to the benefit of the organization in the long term, costs in terms of bulk purchase. When you purchase in bulk, you are able to negotiate for discounts. You're able to negotiate for discounts. And this can, result in economies of scale for the company. The company can make a lot of savings from buying. Yeah, when we buy in bulk, we are able to make some savings. Yes, among other advantages. Then we can look at some disadvantages as well if you are asked. You see. Then we can look at question B, 1B. Explain the following IT systems used by the procurement and supply chain function. So ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, I've explained them and I've explained it. We've done it even twice. So, and material requirement planning. Yes, and even purchase to pay. And I mentioned that purchase to pay, it's a cycle that starts right from understanding the need, or right from even, yes, and it's just like the procurement, the sourcing process, understanding the need to contract, not contract award, but delivery. So right from stage 1 till the contract is delivered or till the goods are delivered by the supplier, there is no physical meeting. You don't even see the supplier. Everything is electronic. Everything is electronic. Payment is electronic. Invitation to, if it is e-auction, everything is electronic. So it's purchase to pay is about using electronic systems to source your requirements. So you never get to see the supplier until the supplier delivers the goods. Payment is even not made in cash. It's made electronically. So you are using e-sourcing tools, e-payment, e-requisition, e-whatever, e-tendering, and the rest. Okay. Then we also looked at material requirement planning, and we learned that material requirement planning is a system that is usually used in by manufacturing companies to plan their requirements for materials, actually. And what happens is that it's usually based on forecast and customer orders. And this forecast and customer orders are converted into
a master production schedule. And from the master production schedule, bills of materials are generated. And the system has a way of looking at the status file, the inventory status of the organization, and doing some calculations to provide the exact quantities that the organization needs, which will inform how much orders must be placed for that particular need. So if the system says that we need 200 pieces of bicycle tires, that is what we are going to order for, or the company will order for. Yes. Then enterprise resource planning is also a system that integrates the core functions within an organization and provides a common platform for information sharing. What it does is that it has extra capacity, it has extra function that allows the various departments who have been integrated to access relevant documents that they usually use in their domain. So like purchase orders, procurement use a lot of purchase orders and all that. Procurement can access this document on the ERP platform. Any other document that finance also uses will also be on the platform, and other functions as well. Then question 2A, define the term governance. Define the term governance. And when you talk about governance, it's a set of responsibilities and practices, exercised by the board usually and executive management, with the goal of providing strategic direction and ensuring that objectives are achieved. And that is what governance is. When we talk about corporate governance, it's a system by which companies are directed and controlled, basically. So how do we, direct the system and control the system? It's by having policies, by having rules, having regulations, having structures. And these together form the system. These together form the system. Now, let's look at B. Explain 5 reasons why it's important to maintain effective governance standards within the procurement function. 5 reasons why it's important to maintain effective governance standards within the procurement function. Now, some of you should talk. Why is governance important for procurement? I'm listening. Yes. Next time, if you don't talk, we'll move on. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Christian.
Yeah, please, are you there?
Yes, please.
Oh, let me hear your sweet voices.
Why do you think governance standards are necessary for the procurement function? And see, when we talk about effective governance standards, we should be thinking around conflict of interest, gift policies, standards for procurement, like sustainable procurement standard. We can even talk about procurement policies. Why are all these important? Why should approval structures or reporting structures be there for procurement? So that procurement cannot do certain things without top management approval. It's very important. So let's think around conflict of interest policies, gift policies, procurement policies. Now, if there is a procurement policy, procurement will use the approved procurement structure or the procurement process, which may bring value for money to the organization. If there is a conflict of interest policy, procurement may declare their interest in a particular contract, award, and may dissociate themselves from the contract. And this enhances the credibility of the award process. And the organization as a whole. Effective governance standards also ensures that the procurement function provides an audit trail for all its activities and justification for decisions made for procuring certain items and services within the organization or for the organization. And this enhances managerial control and reduces the risk of discretionary spending. Then we can even talk about policies like gift policies, where suppliers offer gifts and hospitality of various kind to, procurement managers or professionals in order for the process to be skewed in their favor. If there is an effective governance standard, the procurement function will be unable to do so because the organization's policies may have proactively prescribed an amount that should be accepted as a gift by providing a threshold. So procurement cannot accept certain items or certain amount or amount of a certain or beyond a certain threshold, so to speak. These are all, outcomes of effective governance. Then even when we can talk about the transparency, it promotes transparency in the procurement process and openness. So that is it. We can even talk, or I will give you more information on that, so don't worry. Then question 3, explain 3 advantages to an organization when adopting a devolved. Explain 3 advantages to an organization when adopting a devolved procurement structure. Yes, when adopting a devolved procurement structure. Please, are you tired? Hello?
Hello, Christian.
Yeah, are you tired? We can break for 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, 10 minutes. I don't know
10
about
minutes will be fine. Eh? Hello? We can break for 10 minutes. Eh?
Yes, please.
Okay. Then let's break for 10 minutes. So we'll resume, we'll come back at 11:22. It's 11:12 now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Hello, Jacqueline. Can you please hear me?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay. I thought it was from my end. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, so I think my own was also on mute.
Oh, okay.
So at the point you couldn't hear me. Eh?
We've not heard you for like 5 to 10 minutes. So
Oh, I've been talking to, but don't worry, the recording will capture it.
okay.
So like I was saying, I mentioned I was talking about question 1B. Question 1B. Describe 5 ways in which the charitable status of a third sector organization impacts on its procurement function. So yeah, I was saying that you have to take an organization. You can take a third sector, as you can use a third sector as an example, like I use Doctors Beyond Borders. If you are using Doctors Beyond Borders as an example, and you are a procurement professional in this third sector organization, then their objective will be to ensure that medical supplies are always available. They will have to make sure they have enough supplies to cater for war victims. So you, the procurement professional there, your role is to ensure that you get the right quality of medical supplies in their right quantities at all times. And it also requires that you comply with the inventory holding policy of the organization, because you'll be holding stock. There will be policy for inventory or for holding inventory at all times. You would have to do some forecasting, use some IT-based inventory management systems to manage inventories, to avoid some of these, items getting missing or even expiring. You have to check all these, because if a medical supply has expired, it's dangerous, and they are going to use it on, some of these war victims. It's going to even kill them further. So procurement must be very meticulous when it comes to handling some of these medical items in, the third sector. So that's in context. Now, the organization does not even worry whether the supplier who is supplying the items pay his workers well or not. The Doctors Beyond Borders is not interested in that. So even if procurement supplier selection does not extend to the ethical and environmental responsibility of the supplier, the organization doesn't have a problem, because their interest is medical supplies in ebi oho, ebi niwa, make sure it's available so that we can cater for flight victims. War victims. That is their objective. But if you go to another third sector, like Oxfam GB is interested in eradicating poverty across the globe. So if you're a procurement professional there, what you can do is first to eradicate poverty in your supply chain. And you can start with your suppliers. It means supplier selection must include ethical and environmental responsibility of your suppliers. If your supplier is not paying workers well, and workers are working overtime without pay, and you claim you are eradicating poverty across the globe, another NGO will come and expose you that even your suppliers, they are not paying their workers. You are not talking. So the impact of the objective of this third sector, Oxfam GB, on procurement will be very huge. It will be very huge in the area of specification, developing specification, and even supplier selection. If we are selecting suppliers, we have to make sure suppliers are ethical.
if we are specified, we have to make sure whatever we specify can be delivered by suppliers who make use of SMEs and all that, small, medium enterprises. They pay living wages. They don't subject their workers to excessive working hours and all that. They're even members of PTI. That will be your interest, because you must first eradicate poverty from your supply chain before you even think of the world. So the objective of a particular third sector can impact on procurement activities greatly. Then question 2, discuss 5 ways in which the objective of profitability in a private sector organization might impact. So profitability of a private sector organization, it can impact on procurement activities. So all the supply chain innovative strategies, lean supply, value-added negotiation, value engineering, they are all very important. Then we can even talk about getting the right quality of inputs, their right quantities, the 5 rights from the right sources, ensuring that our suppliers are sustainable. Because today, you cannot even attract investors to your company. You cannot attract customers to your company if you are not sustainable. So if we do sustainable procurement, it can inure to the benefit of the organization, can enhance the profitability of the organization. Procurement can do a whole lot. Then 3A, explain the impact of 3 objectives of the public sector organization on its procurement activities. So the impact of 3 objectives. So what is, what are the objectives of the public sector? So we know the public sector is there to ensure it delivers the desired service level. So procurement must also ensure that whatever the organization within which it finds itself procures exactly what that organization wants. So if you find yourself in a hospital, you have to make sure you procure the desired quantity and quality of medical supplies to enable the hospital meet its service level, the desired service level of patients. Then also the corporate social responsibility is also another objective of the public sector. So the public sector is also there to ensure that there is social and economic development. Yes, these are all under, the desired service level. There are a lot under them. So they will have, you as a procurement function, you have to ensure that all the suppliers you are engaging can at least dish out an aspect of the contract to small, medium enterprises, SMEs, so that they can also grow. That is how it impacts on, so there is also what we call community benefits clauses in contracts. Procurement must ensure that the community also benefits, by ensuring the community, only people within that community are used or are employed to deliver that contract. You don't bring your own people, And the community also must benefit from the contract to a larger extent. So that is how it affects procurement activities. So B, explain how a purchaser in the public sector complies with the regulatory requirement for competitive supply and accountability. Competitive supply is basically competitive tendering. So you have to talk about competitive tendering and its ability to deliver value for money for the organization. So procurement must ensure that there is transparency, there is fairness and openness in the competitive bidding process so the company can achieve value for money. Then accountability also looks at the provision of an audit trail, because in the public sector is a highly regulated environment. And there is a need for a structured process to be followed at all times, leaving an audit trail for auditors to come and do their auditing. And if found culpable, or if there is any malfeasance, economic malfeasance of any sort, the procurement professional will be held accountable for any decision made. Now we have the Public Account Committee. They'll be summoned. Then question 4, describe 3 objectives of public sector organizations. We've mentioned some of them already. Explain 4 ways in which regulations might impact public sector procurement. We've also done that. So procurement must comply with the Public Procurement Act, which requires that there is competitive bidding at all times. And some items must be approved. Single sourcing, for example, needs to be approved by the Public Procurement Authority before it is done. They are all part of the regulations. There are even regulations regarding framework agreements and all that. And the impact on public procurement. Procurement cannot source for items without, or cannot do single sourcing without approval from the regulatory body. Yes. And there should always be a procurement plan at the end of the year. There's public sector procurement. Then describe 3 objectives of public sector organization. Explain 4 ways in which regulations might impact public sector. Yes, then question 6A, explain the differences between a private sector company and public sector organization in the following areas: ownership and control, sources of finance. So in terms of ownership and control, we know the private sector company is owned and controlled by shareholders and directors. Then the source, but the public sector organization is owned and controlled by government. Sources of finance for the public sector is taxpayers' money, grants, and taxpayers' money, grants, and what are the other sources of public sector organizations in terms of their sources of finance? Loans, Yeah, that's why we owe a lot. We owe might be well. So, but the private sector has so many other sources, including personal savings. We have what we call reserves, and even loans, sale of assets, sales and leaseback. So many other sources of finance. Then 7A, describe with examples 4 ways in which a third sector organization objective may impact on its procurement activity. So this is just like the one I answered in terms of the looking at the charitable status of a third sector. The same answer applies. 7B, explain the impact of regulation on a third sector or sector's procurement function. Yes, so regulation. When we talk about regulations, we are looking at the regulation as a charitable organization, because if you are a charity, you cannot make profit. So when the company is not supposed to make profit, the company relies on donor funds. So there will be procurement policy to ensure judicious use of, donors' money. Very important. So procurement must ensure that it acts as a steward or as a caretaker of donor funds and ensure that all those that are supposed to benefit from the donation are benefiting from it in a manner that does not result in waste. Okay. Then I outline 5 rules of a public sector regulator. So we have some public sector regulators like the Security and Exchange Commission. We have Environmental Protection Agency. We have Bank of Ghana. We have so many regulators, even National Communication Authority. Just mention them. So you take each of them and outline their rules. What do you do? And what they regulate. Then B, explain with examples how objectives of corporate social responsibility may impact on public sector procurement. So yes, like I mentioned, corporate social responsibility would require that procurement would ensure an aspect of the contract goes to small, medium enterprises. Because as one of the objectives of the public sector, social and economic development is very important to the public sector. So procurement will have to ensure that suppliers award aspects of the contract packages to small, medium enterprises. And even procurement also conducts what we call meet the buyer session, because some SMEs cannot bid for certain contracts because they feel they are not literate enough to read the tender documents and all that. So meet the buyer session will allow the procurement professional to educate them, or will allow procurement entities to educate suppliers on how to fill tender documents, how to come together. Sometimes the contract may be so huge that only one SME may not be able to handle it. So they have to come together, form a partnership and bid for the contract. And once they get the contract, they share. Procurement has a role to play in that area as well, to educate and train suppliers in that area. Then question 9, compare 5 characteristics of manufacturing sector organizations with those of retail sector organizations. Here, I will send you a detailed document on that. because in our last meeting, we looked at the retail sector. I think last 2 meetings on this learning, on this model, we looked at the retail sector. The manufacturing sector, we know what they do. Manufacturing sector is into manufacturing, so it deals a lot in components and parts, raw materials. So there is a need for supplier management, supplier relationship management in that area. And there's a need for specification development in the manufacturing sector, among other things. And here we are looking at the role of procurement in these sectors, the role of procurement in these sectors, even the machines that they use in producing. Procurement will have to be buying it using total cost of ownership specification or total cost of ownership, amongst other things. Then when you look at the retail sector, procurement acts as a marketing officer. Yes, like a marketing manager. They only buy what sells. Yes, and what appeals to the customers. Their purchases are usually against specification, there's manufacturer specification. And their objective is bottom line. So the bottom line thinking. They only sell or buy what sells. If a product is not selling, they are not buying it. So they'll keep very low stock of such products. Once they sell everything, that's it. So I will send you a detailed information on this particular question. Then question 10, describe with examples 4 ways in which a private sector organization's objective and impact of, yes. So the objective of profitability of the private sector, how does it impact on procurement activities? So that's it for today. We are done. Do you have any question? I think chapter 3, part of chapter 3 was not recorded because when we went on break, I paused. When I came back, I didn't on it. So part of chapter 3 was not recorded, but I will send you the answers to the questions with some comments. Yes, so at least you have my comments on the questions. I'll send it to you by close of tomorrow. I will have to do that and send it to you by close of tomorrow, okay? Right. So thanks for your time. You said you won't talk, so I've done all the talking. My head is even achy, but I won't talk. So have a wonderful day. Hello.
Thank you, Christian.
You're welcome. My throat is even dry. Because you said you won't talk. You won't talk, so you are hurting my throat.
Okay. No, we'll talk on the paper for you.
You talk on the paper for me, eh? I hear. So have a wonderful day.
All right, Christine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.